Person has a plumbing issue, calls plumber. Person has a body issue, becomes chemist. Welcome to another video. Today's video topic is about why you must track calories to achieve your goals, whether that be fat loss or muscle building. Now, I can empathise with parents, especially working parents, because life is chaos and finding 1 minute just to have a these days is a disaster by itself. Chaos has happened as soon as you sit on the toilet, and then if you're trying to eat your food, you're sitting time, you're shaking the little off your leg because they think they're entitled to everything you have in your life. I love my kids, really. But no, seriously, achieving your goals is a small price to pay for how much those goals will enhance this and your body, and how that will have a carryover effect to your family, your work, and your confidence. If I was to pass you a crystal ball and show you your body in 6 to 12 or even a couple of years' time, and you saw how amazing you looked, you would then want to invest time into the process. However, many people don't have organization to all of the moving parts, and when they start off their journey, they don't understand it, therefore they don't trust it, and then they are definitely not going to invest time into that. And most go alone, but second guessing leads 99% of the time to quitting. And most people are like, I ain't paying no damn PT to tell me to eat less and move more. 2 weeks later, probably 2 days, to be fair. PT is not just for what they know, it is for the accountability and the support, especially supporting you as an individual. A PT adapts to the client. We all have different personalities, different ways of eating, different forms of exercise we like, different times we like to train. It's just that it can be the subtleties that make the difference for many. Number one would be to learn the calorie content of food, because some foods that you would think are very healthy, and they are packed with calories, and some just won't be worth your investment, because at the end of the day you have a finite amount of calories available in your calorie budget. For example, would you choose an olive oil based sauce or a low calorie sauce whilst you're dieting? Would you choose avocado, or would you choose something like broccoli as a side? Would you choose a cake, or would you choose a fruit bowl with honey and some yogurt on top of it? You know, because when you think about dieting, yes, you can still eat junk food, and you can still lose fat when you eat junk food, but you won't feel as good, and you will feel hungrier much more often. And I refer to this sort of like a seesaw. On one side of the seesaw, you've got satiety, and on the other, you've got taste. But obviously when we're dieting, we've got less calories to work with. So although we can eat junk food, if it means that we're going to be hungrier soon, or not feel as energized from those foods, or have a higher chance of overeating, then we need to find the balance between those two ends of the seesaw. So even though we might not be eating as nice a food as we would normally when we've got available capacity because we're eating at maintenance calories, we will choose foods that we like versus too many foods that we love. And the example of that would be sort of like a fruit bowl with your favourite fruits and, you know, in it, and yogurt and honey, against a cake. As soon as you've achieved your goals and you're back at maintenance calories, you've got more availability to put a cake in there and still have similar levels of fullness or satiety throughout the day. And it's that balance between satiety and taste that will allow you to be consistent and avoid binges. Now, exercise increases appetite. So if we aren't tracking calories, we will mindlessly eat those calories back, and that is just a human survival mechanism that's naturally inbuilt within us to survive. So it's a multitude of things really. Number one is, yes, it's not tracking calories. Number two, it's not understanding the calorie content in foods. And number three, then it's not choosing the foods that will offer the highest volume versus the lowest calorie content, which will add satiety to your days and weeks and allow you to lengthen those fat loss cycles out. Now, what gets measured gets managed. Without data, without tracking, you don't know how to push past any plateaus as they arrive. Also, most that don't track diet strictly and aggressively. Now the problem with this is the strictly bit means you get none of your favorite foods. The aggressive bit means that you end up crashing your energy. You feel like absolute and then you binge. Now the secret, the real secret, is to quench your thirst or to quench your feelings towards certain foods quickly so that you don't get too tempted, too deprived, and then annihilate food and destroy what progress you have made so far. I don't tell my clients to take wine out, to take chocolate out. They can eat whatever they want so long as it's within the calorie budget, but I inform them that eating those types of foods are best done sparingly because they will be starving at night and then they'll eat into their calorie deficit. Now cash gets us things. Fuel gets us from A to B, so does energy, which is why we need to track to make sure we have sufficient amounts so that we don't feel like shit. Wherever calories are placed will send a message to our body for what it needs to do. So if we undereat for long enough, consistently enough, our body will understand that message, and by the law of thermodynamics, our body will then burn fat from our stored reserves. Now when it comes to dieting, we want to suffer less. We want to make our fat loss phases as economical as we possibly can. We want to get in, we want to get out, we want to burn X amount of fat for X amount of time, then go back to maintenance calories or TDEE and match our energy input to our exercise output, and then life gets a whole lot easier. We can eat what we want, again within the calorie budget, but now we're at maintenance calories, so we might have 500 to 700 more calories to work with a day, which is a whole meal. Then things get easy, but whilst we are dieting, we need to have our ducks in order so that we can be efficient and economical in that phase. When it's done, life gets a whole lot easier, but the problem arises when people kinda diet, then that spreads over a real long period, like a full year. Now really what we should be doing is be dieting for, say, 8 to 12 week phases. Now this does depend on your level of body fats, but I'll give you an example. Many people may be better to diet for 8 to 12 weeks and then take a 1 to 4 week break after those 8 to 12 weeks. It resets a lot of things. The brain, for example, is one of them. It gives you mental alleviation. You can enjoy food, you're less food obsessed, your hormones balance out again. Certain hormones that make you feel extreme hunger and make you feel like you need more and more and more bigger volumes of food to feel full, they settle down, the metabolism speeds up. Everything goes back to where it needs to be, our energy, our sleep, our libido, all of these things that get tampered with, shall we say, when we diet. All those things return back to normal, and then we can start another diet phase from a fresh point of view. The worst thing to do is when you are diet fatigued and you are food obsessed, all of these side effects are occurring, yet you still push. That is literally like swimming against the tide, and so many people do this. They swim against the tide and then they wonder why they aren't making progress. They're not tracking, they're eating foods that they know aren't the best foods to eat, and so they are constantly eating into their deficit, or they kind of just like diet for a little while and binge, diet, binge, diet, binge. It has to be sustainable, and that really is the key. Another great dieting tool to use is refeed days. Now with a refeed day, when you are tracking calories and you know where your calories are, you can incorporate refeed days and it feels like a whole lot more food than you used to without gaining weight. In fact, you can slightly reduce the calories on your deficit days, have your refeed day and maintain weight. Maybe gain a little bit of weight, but what that usually is just glycogen and water loading. And then the day after, when you push on again and you're back into your diet, usually diet phases get lengthened out quite a lot because there is a lot of mental alleviation, but also it's muscle protective when you incorporate refeed days. They're kind of a diluted version of a diet break, but they can really help, in my experience, people to push on for the next 6 days when they've had that refill. They feel good, they feel naughty. You can liken it a little bit to more of a binge type day. And what I mean by that is many people when they're dieting, they'll be in a deficit, they'll be in an aggressive deficit, and then they'll eat at maintenance, but probably assume that they are far above maintenance and let that day destroy their journey. Up to that point, they just stop. However, if you have that maintenance day, even if you didn't factor in lower calories on the other 6 days, you would still be 6/7 of a pound of fat loss down. So on day 8, because day 7 is a maintenance day, you'll be at that pound of fat loss a week. Now, this is just a tool, but it just goes to show how dieting is not as simple on the eye as people think it is. It's not just as simple as eating less, moving more, because that can catch up with people very quickly. When you've got your ducks in order and everything is structured and all the moving parts are organised, it makes fat loss much easier, especially when you've got accountability. Now, another reason why tracking calories is a good thing is because on an app like MyFitnessPal, for example, and by the way, you don't need to use the paid version, I've used the free version for a while, you can track your nutrients to make sure that you're not nutrient deficient. Things like vitamin A or folic acid or calcium or potassium, all of these things make sure that you are in a good place. Did I mention vitamin C? Plenty of things you can track there, as well as your proteins, your carbs, your fats, and fibre as well, because when you're dieting, you want fibrous foods. Fibrous foods make sure that you feel fuller for longer. It's the small things that add up to paint the bigger picture. Dieting seems easy on the eye, but it's not as easy when you are actually doing it because there's a lot of moving parts. I mentioned a lot of reasons why we should probably track it, but one reason that you might not have thought of so far is that if your macros change, your carbs, fats and proteins, if they change from day to day, so does, guess what? The scales. When carbohydrates change, the scales change, because for every gram of carbohydrate we consume, we store 2.7 grams of water with that. So if you imagine a human being can store 400 to 600 grams of carbohydrates in their skeletal muscle, that then means that they can easily hold, say, 3 to 4 pounds of water weight with that. Now, if a human being is consuming, say, 250 grams of carbohydrates a day, and then they up one day, the refeed day or maintenance, or they think it's a binge and they go up to 500 grams of carbs a day, the extra 250 grams of carbs is almost, it's around half a pound, isn't it? 453 grams is a pound, so 250 grams of carbs is around the half a pound mark. So then you add on to that the other 1.5 pounds of water that comes with that, and you've got yourself 2 pounds gained in a day. The point is that the scales fluctuate a lot, and that's because our food changes a lot, and all that needs to be is one extra meal of more carbs compared to yesterday, which was more fats, and the scales are all over the place, which just proves another point. You cannot rely on the scales, especially as your number one tool of progress. The scales factors into 4 or 5 different things you can use. Things like measurements, performance indicators, picture progress, how clothes fit. All of these things are gauges you can use, but the scales is definitely not the most important one. It serves as a navigator, more of a long-term navigator. And whilst we're on topic of scale fluctuations, they destroy so many people's journeys. When those people are actually successfully losing body fat, but they stop because the scales have changed a little bit, but it will just be some variable like water retention or more carbs, or you need a big turd. But often some variable is masking weight loss, and that leads people to stop what they are doing despite the fact they are progressing. And of course, when it doesn't work, people wait for the next fad, literally in queue. I know this isn't going to work, but it sounds too tempting. Empty my pockets for me, please. But of course, really, it's the never track, because you end up worse than when you started every single time we try something, and the lack is in the education. Person has a plumbing issue, calls plumber. Person has a body issue, becomes chemist. We don't understand the process, we just drink said drink, take said tablet, and hope for the best. PTs are like, man, come on, I am here. Supplements alone account for 2 to 3% of a person's results. The basics will always win, and understanding the process is very important because then we can consist with it. A slow calorie deficit is really the fast route to success, because when you think about it, even if that takes you 2 to 3 years, it's better than a lifetime of dieting, which never works. There are two things between you and your goals. Number one is time, and number two is sustainable completion of goal-specific objectives. Now, if you really don't want to track calories and you're like proper anti-calories, what I would suggest is tracking a day, one of your first days. Make sure that the foods you're eating, the meals you're having, places you in X amount calorie deficit. Really, you want a 5 to 700 calorie deficit sustained for long periods. Some people can manage more, but it makes some people feel rubbish. But anyway, you need to know that your calories and protein are where they need to be. Once you have tracked your calories and you know where they are on an app like MyFitnessPal, then you can just eat the same meals day in, day out. Most of us do that anyway, especially if you've got kids. You buy the same food shopping, you eat the same meals, and then at the weekend you have a little bit more food versatility, or you get yourself a takeaway. If you manage to get to the end, you need a friggin' medal. But if you did watch the whole thing, common calories. What was the one thing that you could take now and use to make your diet phases or your muscle building phases better? Your comments on the algorithm. Can I say that? I don't know. Comment in the algorithms and that'll help me become massive. Guys, see you on the next one. I can't do it today. I can't do it today. Today's topic . My border! Like that, through fat fingers. Oh, for come on, what is wrong with me? I'm into. Stop forgetting what's next, Luke. Is goal completion of goal-specific objectives. I'm never getting this, am I? Sustainable completion of goal-specific objectives. Oh, it's so easy when I don't need to say it. Objectives. I'm on page 1, Luke. I've got 4 pages left, man. What about it? Why can't I just fold my hands? In your muscles, they will... I'm chatting. I had a point.